morning, welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be going over the 5 best cloth farms that you can do in WoW. Now just stick around and enjoy the video. Coming in at number 1 we have the EMBERSILK cloth farm. Now this one is done by gaining a potion of treasure finding and making sure that you have tailoring for maximum effective use of cloth gathering. Now that sounded like a massive wordful, so let's just put it simply: have tailoring for the most amount of gold that you want. And basically make your way over to the Bastion of Twilight. Make sure that is on 25-man heroic and drink your potion of treasure finding. Now you can usually do these 10 resets of the first load of trash, about 15 minutes at most. It is really easy to do with your character at this moment. The amount of EMBERSILK cloth that you can actually gain from this is insane, and if you actually pair it with enchanting, you can also turn this into either the bags using tailoring or just crafting them into the death silk braces and then disenchanting them for even more profit. Other than that, the EMBERSILK cloth that you gain from this is by far one of the best farms in order to gain a load of EMBERSILK cloth, and I highly recommend it, especially paired with the potion of treasure finding, as it gives you a load of different types of volatiles and or ore in order to sell on the auction house for additional gold. Aside from that, the Bastion of Twilight for EMBERSILK is at number 1. Coming in for number 2, we have the FROSTWEAVE cloth farm. Now this one is really easy to do, as it only takes a few minutes in order to do one run. Now paired with just your tailoring in general and making sure you have that, this is basically the bog standard. Just make sure that you have tailoring throughout all of these farms and you should be getting more cloth overall. Now if you go over to the cathedral on the left hand side of Icecrown Citadel, where you do the RP event for Arthas, you are able to see a load of elite mobs. Now these mobs have a respawn timer of around about 2 minutes, and you can gather all of these ones up, burn them down, and you gain a 10 ton of different types of FROSTWEAVE. On average I gain around about 50 FROSTWEAVE for one pull, and it provides me with a lot of FROSTWEAVE overall. Now FROSTWEAVE cloth on its own tends to sell either kind of high or kind of low depending on your realm, so this one is kind of one of those curveballer ones, so it would be one of those ones that you would double check on the auction house before you even do this farm. Aside from that, you do have a lot of downtime throughout doing this, as it's not instant respawn, it's a 2-minute respawn thing from the time of killing the mobs. So be prepared in order to either craft them into the FROSTWEAVE bolts when you've got enough of the FROSTWEAVE in order to kill the boredom, or watch something else and keep a timer up in order to keep tabs on how long you're actually going to be doing this. Pulling them all together and burning them down will take you around about a minute, and paired with the respawn time will take you about 3 minutes in order to gain around about, on average, around about 50 FROSTWEAVE cloth per pull. So in total, for 10 pulls, you're going to get around about 500 FROSTWEAVE cloth. Now overall, for an hour would be roughly around about 1,000 FROSTWEAVE cloth per hour, but it does vary depending if you have tailoring and if you are very lucky on your averages for those pulls. But aside from that, I do tend to either get somewhere around that ballpark, so it is definitely worth your time if you are wanting to even make infinite dust or even craft it into FROSTWEAVE bags, as they still sell for a decent amount of gold. Now coming in at number 3 we have the SHALDEORI silk. Now this can be farmed up from the Might Stone, and this is currently located on the screen right now. And all you have to really do in High Mountain is just kill those mobs endlessly, and you will gain a sugar ton of SHALDEORI silk. Now SHALDEORI silk is one of the highest selling cloths at this moment in time, and does somewhere average around about either 7 to roughly around about 15 gold per piece, which is really good in order for just basic cloth farming in general. If you are looking to gain a load of gold from this, I would recommend you pairing this with your tailoring and making sure you craft that into the SHALDEORI bags or the SEAWEAVE bags and selling those on the auction house for additional gold per hour, which does bump up the numbers quite substantially. So if you are wanting to make a decent amount of gold per hour just from tailoring and just doing an hour's farm. I would highly recommend crafting the silk weave bags and selling those on the auction house. Coming in at number 4, we have the FELCLOTH farm, and this is done through a transmog farm, which is the MAUL instance. I usually find that this one is the best gold per hour wise, as you are able to gain a load of different types of transmog in order to sell on the auction house, and as well as that you are able to gather a load of old world herbs in order to sell on the auction house. Aside from all of this, you are going to be gaining a lot of FELCLOTH in that run, because you will be killing all of the satyrs that are humanoids and are able to drop a load of FELCLOTH along with that. Now, FELCLOTH can either be done in 2 ways. If you have tailoring, then I would highly recommend crafting it into mooncloth and selling that on the auction house for basically a huge amount of profit, or you can sell the FELCLOTH raw on the auction house for a okay amount of gold. Now, I am kind of biased about this because FELCLOTH sells faster than mooncloth, but the gold per hour increases substantially if I'm willing to wait that long. Aside from that, I find the FELCLOTH farm to be highly effective in order to gain other different types of materials, and is by far one of my most favourite farming locations, as it is a dungeon. It provides a load of gold per hour, and it provides me with the FELCLOTH that I want. Along with that, this is definitely one of my most favourite farms, and that again was MAUL. Now, coming in at last and finally for number 5, and that is the GILDED SEAWEAVE farm. Now, this is done in the Coral Reef within Nazjatar, and this can either be done by solo or by 5-man. Now, GILDED SEAWEAVE actually does provide you with a decent amount of gold, and overall is a high selling item, as it is used to craft many of the highest pieces of gear to date. Now, I find that GILDED SEAWEAVE is an amazing item in order to sell on the auction house due to the fact of the highest sell rate. They are one of the most expensive cloths in order to get, but it does require you to be at least decently geared in order to take on the mobs in Nazjatar. Now, obviously everyone should be able to be at a decent eye level by now in order to take on these mobs. If you are not, it doesn't take you that long to get geared up in order to do. Just be prepared to not get as much GILDED SEAWEAVE if you do this solo, as opposed if you do a 5-man. You guys are more than willing to go into my Discord and try and set up a 5-man group in order to actually do this, and try and see if you can make any additional gold with your 5-man group. Aside from that, this farm is by far one of my most favourite farms for cloth farming overall, even if you are solo, as pretty much you have a chance of getting any different types of BOE items as well as that. Other than that, guys, that is pretty much all I have to say for the 5 best cloth farms in WoW. Have a lovely rest of the day, and I shall see you in the next video, which will be tomorrow. Have an awesome day, guys, and I shall see you soon.